I am Doug Friedman.
I am Kenzie Janest.
And this is Your Mental Breakdown,
the podcast,
where we are therapists talking to you and bantering like we don't even know the mic is hot.
Recording. Yeah. But the mic is real hot. And we're back, and I'm rusty, and I'm dusty, and I'm happy to be here.
You were just telling me about Etch-a-Sketch, like playing some game with an Etch-a-Sketch.
No, well, I realized that my memory, I feel like my unconscious, our long-term memory really, holds a lot of memory, but I'm not good at recalling things. Do you know what I mean? I remember things, I can't recall them, which is really a shame because it's quite important to be able to recall things.
But what you were telling me was you were actually recalling more than you realized that you gave yourself credit for.
Yes. Well, no. So here's the game, folks. This is what we were playing last night with my friends. On an Etch-a-Sketch, you don't need an Etch-a-Sketch, but just a movie game. It's like Pictionary. You draw a scene that you think represents the movie, and everyone has to guess what the movie is.
Right.
It's so simple and so fun. And I was like, I'm going to be terrible at this because the joke in my relationship is that I'm a movie hater, or I just don't know movies. I haven't seen the classics. Like, I've been working on it with my partner, and I'm getting more into movies. I wouldn't say I'm a full cinephile, but I've watched movies in the Criterion Collection now, okay? So I'm enjoying myself. And I started looking at people's drawings and recognizing things, and I was surprised. But I was not getting the title of the movie. I was just picking up on things, and they were like, yes, you're so close. Like, you're saying all of it, you know? And I have the same thing with music, too. I know the songs, but I don't know who sung them.
Right. Well, you were just singing a Beyonce song.
Exactly.
And, I
don't know the title of it.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So I don't know. I just have other things that take up space in my brain that are more for the taking. You know what I mean? Like right there at the top, at the tip, like floating. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The grab bag is like therapy terms.
Well, if it makes you feel better, this was attributed to Einstein when somebody asked him about remembering the periodic table of the elements. And he was like, no, why would I remember that? I don't want to put anything in my brain that I can't just have on a piece of paper.
Thank you. Right?
Thank Albert.
Thank you, Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
It's brilliant because I don't have to actually know everything.
Right.
That's why books and encyclopedias and Google exists.
I told you about walking into my dad's office as a lawyer and seeing all the law books behind him. I was like, I can never be a lawyer because I can't remember all those laws.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't have to.
Right.
I mean, same with therapy. You don't have to know literally everything. And in fact, therapy is so much more of a experiential, humanistic experience. It's not really about knowing the jargon. In fact, I think we've talked about this before. Like, I actually work hard on not using clinical jargon when I'm talking to clients. Like, it's about being human and just using normal language.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's about knowing so well, almost, you could argue, that it is integrated in such a way that it comes out naturally, which I think is where you are at, obviously, in your career. Like, I think a good therapist has learned so much so well. They know it front and back, and it's just stored in there. Yeah.
But then you have to be very careful because there is a tipping point where
you can get complacent,
or you just start like, you know what you know, and you don't think that there's anything else out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so you have to keep learning and stay open to new things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Hard agree.
Yeah.
Look at that. We agree on something. Well, we agree on a lot of things, actually.
No, we don't. Time out. Go back for a second, because I'm still stuck on the Etch-a-Sketch, like doing scenes from a movie on an Etch-a-Sketch. Like, I'm lucky if I could do a house on an Etch-a-Sketch. Like,
I understand now. It's not an Etch-a-Sketch.
Oh my God. And every time,
wait a minute.
like, nobody can see this, but every time Kenzie says Etch-a-Sketch, I'm doing the two hands, like moving the knobs of an Etch-a-Sketch.
I just remembered what an Etch-a-Sketch is. Okay, it's not an Etch-a-Sketch. It's, what are those things where you use like a stylus and it has
wait. Oh, I know. You're talking about a piece of paper and a pen.
I knew you were going to do that.
Right.
I knew you were going to do that.
Yeah, a piece of paper and a pen. It's like a notepad, right?
No,
Sketchpad, notepad. No, the notebook. It's the notebook. You're doing the notebook.
Oh my God.
No.
The technology is. Oh my God. Do you know, like? Oh my God. What's that clown character where you can like move his hair up to his head?
No.
You know what I'm talking about. I know you do.
Yeah.
The hair, the fuzzies, and you can move it with the magnet. Yeah. It's kind of like that, except it's
I think I got one of those
hexes.
when I was 12 for my birthday.
One of the things I'm talking about?
Yeah, the little clown,
thing.
Man. Yeah, I didn't know those still existed. Those are like 30 years ago.
I actually saw one at the grocery store the other day.
Wow.
Okay, but that's besides
So
the
you're
point.
moving things with a stylus on a
You're
magnetized.
drawing.
You're drawing.
It's drawing.
You're just drawing.
It's just
so
drawing.
it's a technologically advanced version of a sketch pad and a pen.
It looks like an Etch-a-Sketch, though. Can I Google it? It's going to bother me, Doug. I need to know.
All right. While Kenzie Googles that, I will tell all of you, if you have things that bother you or not, or that tickle you, or whatever it is, let us know, and we'll talk about it on here.
It is an Etch-a-Sketch. It's an Etch-a-Sketch doodle. So instead of using the little circles that make it 10 times harder, like why do that, right? Use
that's why I was freaking out. Like, how do you do that? I can't even make a box with that.
No, I could never do that.
All right. Are we going to do a listener question, or are we just going to get out of here and get into the session?
This has been so long already, but if you would like to, we can do a listener question.
Let's do one.
Of course. Okay.
Lay it on me.
Okay, my question, and this comes off of having bronchitis for a month and a half and also having clients who are in sickness, injuries, stuff where they cannot access their usual coping skills, right? Maybe you can't leave the house, for instance, and you can't go to the gym. You can't be active. Like, what do we do when we can't access our usual coping skills that make us feel better? I mean, obviously, there are always other coping skills to access, but it is hard when you think about something like chronic pain or an illness where you are really immobile and you're stuck in one spot for a long time.
Sure. When I do my annual MRIs that last an hour and a half, and you're just stuck in a tube, and what do you do?
Sure. So there's like the acute setting and then the long-term settings, right? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think acute might be a little different, right? Because you can do visualization, breathing. Like if it's just a few hours, that's different than if you are stuck at home for a month.
I think what happens is we start to fixate on the coping skills that we can't access. So we're thinking of what we don't have and we're looking at that and that creates these negative feelings.
Like at the deficit. Yeah.
Right. So if we look at it as an opportunity to expand and think of, oh, what else can I tap into? What can I do?
Yeah.
Then we can start to develop things. I don't want to discount or diminish that it's a bummer that we can't access our regular coping skills, especially if they're effective. Even if they're not effective, like the things that we know
just our usual hobbies and things.
I'll give you another example.
Yeah.
I mean, this is cute. I mean, it's not that cute, but it's kind of...
It's adorable.
It's adorable. Yesterday, my power went out from 10 a.m. until midnight last night.
Oh. Oh, I didn't know it went out that long.
Oh, yeah.
All day?
Yeah. All day.
Oh, Doug.
All day, right?
Whoa.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So during the day, it's okay because you have daylight and you're not really aware that it's dark and you don't have any power. When it gets darker, then I'm more aware of, oh, wait, I don't really have internet. I've used my phone as a hotspot. You know, you can do that. Use your phone as a personal hotspot.
A hotspot.
Yeah.
Yes. I thought you said hot sauce. Yeah.
I used my phone as hot sauce.
I was
and
very
it wasn't
confused.
very tasty.
Nope. Wouldn't be.
Nope.
Yep. Okay.
Nope.
Hotspot. Yep.
Yeah.
Check.
And I was okay, except when my devices started running out of charge. Most people would be
panic.
Oh, right. Go to a library, go to Starbucks, plug in, no problem. But I also have a dog with me and I don't want to leave him home while I'm just out somewhere plugging in. When the power goes out, you instantly think deficit. Oh no.
Right. What am I missing right now?
Exactly. What am I missing? And the reality is not much.
Yeah, I've still got.
You just feel so disconnected and so cut off from, to your question, your coping mechanisms or whatever you normally use.
Yeah.
That you focus on that deficit and you feel horrible. When it comes back on, inevitably you kind of go, oh, great, it's back on. Oh, okay, now I can do that. And 2 minutes later, you're like, oh, wait, that's all?
I love that you took this into a giant metaphor because, of course, you did. You went full analogy on me, which I don't know why I'm surprised. But yeah, okay, so someone's energy or someone's electricity went out. Right. Metaphorically speaking, right?
Yep.
They can't go out. They're stuck in one spot in a tiny little apartment, let's say, and they're going crazy.
And I would say right there, 75% of it is they're going crazy, is the anxiety or the panic that they can't access things. So now we have to deal with that anxiety or that panic. If we move past that and just go, okay, wait, that's 75% of use that. What's the other 25%? And then we tap into that and then we discover new things.
Yeah. It's hard. It really is hard. In the moment, it's very much just, okay, how do I distract? And this is a long-term thing. So the kind of chronic part of it makes it 10 times harder because there's no light at the end of the tunnel right now.
For sure. And some of that is just recognizing I can't do what I used to do.
Mm-hmm. Life looks a little different right now.
Oh, I can't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Then we get mad. Then we fight it. Then we try to do something that we used to do. And that's
make things worse.
Right. That's kind of trying to impose your will against something that just is, or something in this case that isn't.
Yeah, it's control. I mean,
it's control.
It's where we go when we're anxious.
It's not accepting something. It's the root of most of our suffering.
Oh, right? Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know the root of my suffering?
I don't know, Doug. What is it? Is it me?
No.
Just say it.
No. No, it's your self-deprecation.
I knew. Okay. Literally when I said that, I was like, shoot, I shouldn't have said that. There's my self-deprecation coming out again.
Right? Because I didn't know where I was going until you led me there. So kudos to you. Your self-deprecation actually led us to something.
Okay. See, sometimes it's useful.
Your weakness is actually your strength.
Aw.
You know what's not self-deprecating?
What, Doug?
This episode with Drew.
Aw, you're right. Maybe we should get into it.
Let's get into it.
Great segue.
Yeah. I haven't seen you since before your birthday. Happy birthday. I mean,
thank you.
3 weeks late.
It's been a while.
Yeah. What's going down? Fill me in.
Man.
Tell me some stories.
Lots of going. I'm in the new spot.
Oh, yeah?
So, I'm the mattress on the floor. Feel like we have a little bit extra space now, which is really nice. My parents came down that same week when we got,
that's right. You told me that
our keys, birthday, all that stuff, right? Plenty to dive in there. There's a lot. So parents, I'll dive into that in a minute. Health-wise, I went and got checked out, got that call, I was fine. So that Monday, the Monday right before my birthday, I went to the cardiologist and they only ran an EKG again. And it was really weird. They called me back. They're like, yeah, you had an abnormal EKG again. You need to see a specialist again. Still going on that front, still working. I had a really good lunch with my partner yesterday. Mm-hmm. And again, that's a bigger picture idea. But the thing that I really appreciated within what that was I was able to thank him. We were just sitting down having bar food, hanging out, having a burger. And I was like, dude, I really appreciate you allowing me to kind of take this on and give me a special side project that I really enjoy doing. Because if I was just working at a workplace right now, I'd be in a whole world of hurt just as far as my brain space and my creativity and everything that I am right now. Yeah. So it was just kind of a cool moment just to kind of sit back and thank him and enjoy that moment together. It was cool.
It's funny because you've got a few people around you that have kind of, I don't want to say gone above and beyond. They haven't. They've actually just been there in a way for you that really matters. And that's, I think it took a while, but cultivated some good people around you that don't have to be around you all the time, but that are there enough and that are there in ways that really are supportive. Give me just a quick update on girlfriend and Dougie Jr. how's just health wise, how's that going? Or anxiety wise really or any of that? Why? Yeah. Good.
Yeah, no, she's doing really good. She's been putting her roots down here. I've never had a new place where I've decorated with somebody in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. It's always been, what do I want it to be? Right. And this is my apartment. Right. How do I want to decorate it? So kind of taking a side seat to that and watching her kind of flourish in the decorating of the house and making it a home and putting stuff where I wouldn't, but turns out it's what I like. And I didn't know it. Kind of learning what it is to be a guy.
There's something about the spirit you're saying it in. It's not shelving what you want to let somebody do what they want, or not like, oh, this is what they want. Okay, I like it too. That's fantastic. It sounds like it's more middle, and that's something we used to talk about a lot.
I think it's been really good for me to kind of see a different perspective in what a move really is. And I mean, even financially, it's been a huge weight off of my shoulders, because I was like, fuck, we need to get a dinner table and we need to get this and we need to get that and we need to do everything before we move in. And it's been a lot more of, we're doing it as we go. Yeah. It's been really cool, and it's been fun to watch her do that. And health-wise, I mean, she's doing really good. She's been tired, but it's normal.
Okay. Is she in the last trimester now? Yeah.
Yeah, we're in 3.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, we're right there. She kind of looked at me. I think I was on my way to work, and she was like, "Yo, we haven't really been fighting at all." And I kind of looked at her. I was like, "Yeah, no, babe, because you're pregnant." As like, I can't fight with you right now. Just wait. And so it was kind of a joke and like laughing. But I say that because I just feel we've been in a really good spot lately, and have been for months now. And so, yeah, I mean, we're doing really good. We're really happy. The house is coming together. I mean, by that, I mean, I still have my bed frame.
Well, at least you have the bed frame. And you said mattress on the floor. I'm like, oh, okay. You get the frame right there. I got you.
Well, yeah, dude. And I tried putting it together the other day, and we bought this off of a guy. He was leaving from the Marines or something, and so we scooped it from him. And he didn't give me any directions, and he just put all the screws in a bag. And I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. So I've been fucking around with it for the last couple of days, and it's so in pieces because I can't quite get it.
Learning curve. You'll figure it out.
Oh, it's the fun part, right?
I know we're going to hit your mom in a second, but you mentioned friend.
Mm-hmm.
What about friend? How are things going with him and you guys?
Good. I think as I'm evolving in life and me and everything, I really appreciate the relationship I have with him because I've learned so much from it. As I'm growing and as he's growing, I see our relationship growing, which is a new thing for me. Usually in the growing phases of relationships, that's where I split or they split. Yeah. It's just kind of my MO. And so this has been a really interesting one as far as seeing the progression of our relationship as we're in that growing phase. As of the last week, we've been talking a lot. But if you asked about like the last 3 months, I probably talked to him 7 times in the last 3 months. It's fun for me because I know he loves me and I know that he still cares about me from where he's at and where I'm at. And I don't need to rush up there tomorrow to go see him. And I still feel that kind of Vader in the back of my head of like, you should send him some shirts and you should really make a day to go see him. And so I hear it, but I'm not listening to it anymore. I'm understanding what it's like to have the Vader Yoda still there and listen to Yoda, but still hear Vader.
Vader never goes away. It's just noticing that, like you said, having both of them there. Just because you don't talk to somebody for a month doesn't mean they don't love you. And if he triggers the abandonment, that's not on him. That's me and my abandonment issues. And I can look at what that is. But I don't need to fawn and go into that mode where I'm, making sure he's okay, making sure we're okay. And you've done that in relationships with girls for sure.
Oh yeah.
And it's and the just cut out is another version of the same thing. It's interesting to hear you now at a place where you don't feel abandoned. That feeling might pop up and Vader might say something about it, but you're like, no, we're good. That pops up for a minute. Having it pop up and not overwhelm you or not have you like drop everything to put on the cape and rescue everybody and go do that. I mean, dude, you haven't been Superman in a long time.
Yeah, thank God.
And then your parents come to town and visit. So
yeah. So I have a lot to dive into and I want to start with the most recent. It's been fucking with me and I think it plays right in line with the relationship aspect of me and friend. So 2 days ago, I texted her in the morning. I was just like, yo, mom, happy Sunday. I love you. Hope you have a great day. I didn't get a text back probably for 7-8 hours. I texted her around noon, got a text back that night. And she said, 8 hours later, I am not texting when you have your notification silenced. And so I go back and forth with her of basically saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have my notification silenced. I'm replying to your notifications. Like, what are you talking about? And so I said it like 3, maybe 4 more times of like, I love you. I hope you have a good day. Like that was the only point of me texting you. And she just wouldn't say it. And so I texted girlfriend and I sent her screenshots of like the whole conversation of like, yo, like, this is what I'm going through and I don't understand it. I think this is why I feel so conditionally loved in a lot of my relationships because it's like I know my mom loves me, but if I do something like not have my notifications on, that's enough for her not to tell me she loves me. And so like I had like this weird epiphany where I was like, I'm so conditioned to want to please you, to tell me that you love me.
Yeah.
that it fucks me up when you don't tell me you love me. I think I'm doing something wrong. And then girlfriend had a really good response. And it was something along the lines of like, it doesn't matter like what you do or what you're doing. I love you no matter what because of who you are. And I was like, okay, that's what I needed to hear that right then. That was the reassurance I was looking for. And I was definitely looking for it in my mom. Even since then, my mom hasn't replied with I love you too, or have a good day or anything of the nature.
I like that, like you said, the epiphany and the realizations that you're having. That old version of you that we just were referencing would get that text from your mom and figure out how you can permanently disable, notifications off and make sure that you are always on call. And I'll fly up there and show you my phone, make sure you're okay. And it's super triggering because it was sending you a message. You were receiving a message that said, I am wrong. I am not lovable when I'm wrong. That's not necessarily what she was sending, but that's the message you received, right? So to get some reassurance from girlfriend, it's nice. You're growing a little more because you don't necessarily need that from mom, but not understanding it. It's sort of like the people that are somewhat narcissistic or borderliney. Like there's a flavor of people and three things to remember. No matter what I do, no matter how I am, it's always about them. They're always going to be a victim, and it's never good enough. In that text exchange, your mom made it about her. She was somehow a victim because your notifications were off. And you texted her a few more times. It's not good enough. Like, what more can I say? What does she want?
All three are dead on, just as far as like who she is. And I never looked at it from that side of things. I think more so because my mom, I didn't want to. I think as I was going through that text exchange with her, my instant thought was, oh, she's fucked up, or oh, she's done this, or this, that, the other, and kind of excusing it and not calling it out for what it was.
Right.
And now I want to jump into the week that we had because this was the first time she met a kid. This is the first time she saw a girlfriend pregnant.
Right.
And she hasn't seen my life in a long time. So there was a lot of rekindling, a lot of the relationship as far as her seeing my new Polaroid. It was very interesting to see the dynamic between her and my dad and the shift that's been. I see my dad standing on his own 2 feet and my mom kind of next to him in a way, trying to like hold on to what that is. And I could see the frustration of my dad, and I can sympathize with what he feels as far as business pressure and life pressure and everything that he's built the last 40 years and now wanting to go enjoy it. And her kind of doing the opposite and still going downhill. Me and him were in the car and we're coming back from Costco, and he was like, dude, I just can't fucking take this anymore. Like she is just destroying me. And I leave for 3 days to go to Atlanta, and I come home and the house is fucked up. The car is wrecked. Like, I don't know if she's going to kill somebody. I don't know if she's going to kill herself. I just don't know. In a lot of the 5-6 days that they were here, I was taking a lot more of the little Drew on and trying to make my mom feel safe and wanting my mom to feel included, that as long as she was okay, everybody else around her would be okay, when really the trip wasn't about that at all. I have a very real fear of my parents splitting up, and not at all for what that is as far as like, oh my God, it's my fault. Like, I'm not worried about that. And I'm not worried about my dad. I am worried about what it looks like for my mom to be on her own, especially at the age she's getting to. As far as I'm concerned, I'm the only one other than my dad that really gives a shit about her and would do anything for her. And so now you take my dad out of the picture. And so now I look at it as I'm the only one left. And so I was putting a lot of those little Drew thoughts back into my head of like, well, if they do this, and where's she going to go, and who's going to take care of her, and how can I be there, and how can she come down here? And I went down the rabbit hole. And the thing I've been having struggles with is the pull on myself of going backtracking to help my mom, or looking forward into my own family and how do I take care of that. And I haven't had the thought process or been able to think about the two simultaneously of, okay, how do I help my family first and foremost? And how do I continue to help my mom and my dad and my brother and my whole other family that I want to take care of? It's been a lot of what ifs and a lot of future tripping and a lot of being very real with the situation that I believe my parents are in.
How is that, just to say that part right there?
I don't think I've had time to slow down and think about it. I think this is the first time I really dove in and thought about what it looks like for my parents, and then throw in my existential anxiety. It's a combination of, I think, all of my fears kind of hitting all in one center point and not knowing which one to tackle first.
Yeah. You might remember an older version of me that would do what I'm about to do right now, which is I'm going to ask you to take a breath and breathe a little bit while I talk for a second, slowly. So we can just slow it down a little bit. That was kind of a lot that you threw out. And it's a lot going on, a lot in your head. And I'll start with something really cool about how you threw that out there. And it was coming fresh off of you not putting on the cape so much. Part of it's weighing on you because you're not just going to go drop everything and solve it yourself right now. That's cool. That's progress. And you're thinking about it. Things that are not being said that might need to, or things that you're outgrowing and don't involve you. Like, hey, Dad, are you and Mom having troubles? I can even foresee a separation or a divorce. And seeing how that lands. Regardless of whether or not you say that, just acknowledging it for yourself and what that means. Along with, I've outgrown them. I don't need that reassurance and validation from my mom all the time, even though I text her looking for it. Okay. And worrying about whether she's going to be okay brings me right back to brother going, you walk out there, I won't talk to you again. It's almost as if your dad said, hey, if you keep taking care of your mom after I divorce her, I'm not going to talk to you anymore either.
Yeah.
How's that hit you?
Yeah. It doesn't hold as much weight as it used to. The thought of not talking to my parents again for any reason, shape, or form, first freaks me out, and second is very relieving. And I say it in that order because I don't want to lose my parents and I love them with more than anything, right? And at the same time, they add so much unneeded pressure in my life where as I'm beginning to control my life a lot more, I have a lot less time and a lot less energy to put up with what that is from them. It's heavy on my mom for what that conversation is, not so much on my dad. I feel very comfortable talking to my dad about, hey man, you're adding too much pressure here. You need to back off there. I need a little more help here. And I think the communication I have with him could use some work, but is a lot better than what I have with my mom. Now with my mom, I feel like it's very very surface level, and I don't feel comfortable getting deep with her. My train of thought now makes sense based on the narcissistic tendencies that she carries. Every conversation I hold with her of coming to her in a vulnerable way of, hey, listen, this is what's going on. And the reason it fucks me up so much is because 8 out of 10 times she turns it and she makes it about her, and it's something that I did wrong.
We've talked about your boundaries. I think you've gotten better about them. It's probably accurate to say that hurts. Not in the way it used to be with it's entirely my fault, I'm wrong, let me make it better. It's not making it better. It's recognizing, oh, man, that sucks. And I want to be clear when we say like you might be outgrowing your parents, that doesn't mean I don't need them anymore. I don't want them anymore.
Right.
It means that I need and want them differently in my life than I did before.
Right.
And I'm going to be the son I want to be differently than I have been before. I can't put the cape on anymore, especially if I'm going to have a son.
Right.
Doesn't mean you don't love them, like we were saying, like not talking to your friends for a while. And it means you kind of renegotiate and reevaluate how you are in their lives and how you want them in yours.
Right.
I don't want to lose the part where it's still disappointing and you still send a text to your mom recently saying, love you, just thinking about you, and you don't hear anything from her. In fact, you get the conditional, I'm not responding until you take your notifications off.
Right. And that's the difficult part for me too right now, because it's like, if this was a friend relationship, I would have been fucked off a long time ago. I'd have been like, nah, I'm not putting up with any of this. I love my mom unconditionally more than anything, but I don't really like her that much. And I don't agree with her viewpoints.
Right.
I don't really like how she sees the world. And it's hard for me to bring that around my family because it's just dark.
And bottom line, that's true. I don't like her very much. I don't like her viewpoints. That's okay. Again, doesn't mean you don't love her. My dad, we went from like talking every day, all the time. He was like yours, my best friend for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Right.
My life got a little busier. He couldn't relate to it as well, a little more distance. Then something
Mm-hmm.
weird happened. Like in his older age, he became kind of bigoted. And I realized like, I love the man that raised me. I don't like the man he became.
Right.
I don't know about you, and I want to hear your perspective, not your parents, not the intellectual. I know for me, as I saw my dad becoming more bigoted, becoming somebody I didn't really like that much, I got mad, I got frustrated, I got disappointed, I got really sad. I began to pity him. And then I got
Mm-hmm.
really down that I'm pitying my dad, the guy I looked up to for so long, the guy whose approval I wanted for so long.
Yeah.
That's my version. What's your version?
I think I'm more embarrassed and scared. I want to say a different word than mad, because maybe frustrated and disappointed.
Embarrassed is a great word, and that's something that you're no stranger to with your mom. But this isn't about her getting loaded at a game. This is more about her character and who she is. And you're right. I was embarrassed about my dad. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I saw that as a reflection of me.
Yeah, me too. So my parents came into the workplace, right? And I heard a yoo-hoo from across the store, and I was like, fuck, there they are, right? And I was excited. I was like, what's up, mom, dad? This is where I work. This is what I'm doing. In the first 5 minutes, my mom starts yelling at my dad. And I'm like, mom, like, relax. Like, this is where I work. Like, this is so embarrassing. And this is so, like, I don't want people to think I'm like that. Because my mom, that's where I come from.
Yeah, it's where you come from. It's not who you are.
Right. I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, I agree with it. And I think the last couple of weeks I've really come into myself. I was listening to the new song the other day, and it was basically there's like a voicemail from his mom at the end of the song talking about, yo, go on the stage and don't say a word. Just look around and look at everything you built and enjoy it. My version of stop and smell the roses. And I kind of like had another epiphany of like, look at what I've created. Nobody else has done this for me. And like, my dad wasn't here for the last 5 years doing this with me. And I'm really proud of like everything that I've done and I've accomplished and that I'm doing. And I got a family and I got my baby boy on the way. My life is dope as shit. Like, this is exactly who I wanted to grow up to be. And now I'm fighting with little Drew on not going back to where I've been.
Which is where?
Scared in a turtle shell not wanting to leave the house and not wanting to show face to people because I'm afraid of what they're going to think or they're going to come into contact with my mom at the grocery store and all hell's going to break loose because of one of her opinions. And I'm hella excited for everything that I've been doing. Like, I'm stoked on it, dude. And like, I think back to our very first conversation of where do I see myself in 5 years? And even though it's exactly the same as how I feel right now, my perspective of what I said and what I meant are two different things now. I think I was chasing a lot of money and I was chasing a lot of backing. Like, my resume is what I say it is, right? I wanted so bad to have the white picket fence, to be that guy in the suburban neighborhoods that has a solid family, because I felt like that's what I was lacking my whole life.
Right.
And now that I'm standing on my own 2 feet, I can now look back on my struggle of wanting to be little Drew with a family. And now I'm big Drew that has his own family, and I get to decide what that is. So now, going back to mom, the biggest struggle in all of this for me is I've heard you say it a couple of times now of outgrowing parents, and that doesn't mean I don't love them, and it's not a forever thing, and it's a transition period in my life, and I get what that is. I know where my disconnect with that thought process is that I don't believe I'm going to have my mom tomorrow or the next day or the next day or the next day. I have that constant mentality of today's probably my mom's last day. I'm constantly fighting with that thought of, well, I need to make it up with my mom because today could be her last day. I don't think those thoughts with my dad. I don't even think those about my grandma. I do that almost every day with my mom.
Finding some resolve in that first comes without your mom at all. We've talked about this. And there might be a part that involves her. There might not. She might not get it. When she goes, because she will at some point, being able to know, I was the son I wanted to be. She wasn't the mom I wanted to be, especially not towards the end, but I was the son I wanted to be. I think sometimes that's the best we can do. And if she is or was or becomes disappointing or a disappointment, okay, that's her life that you don't take ownership of.
Yeah.
Your life is different. Your movie. But I get it. Like, wanting to have some sort of recognition, something that feels like some resolve, like, cool, we're okay. And it might be there in a different form that we just don't see.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because I think I need to figure out, I don't think there is a right answer to this. I need to figure out what that resolve is for me. Because, I mean, so backtrack like a year ago when I was FaceTiming with them, right? My parents said multiple times how proud of me they were, and that I was doing a really good job, and that they loved my family, and that everything was hunky-dory. And I couldn't help but think to myself, well, what about all this other shit that you guys don't know about? But like, yeah, you guys are now just a surface level friend to me.
Yeah.
To answer my own question, I need to find my own resolve in what that is from my mom. I'm cool with my dad. Like, I know he's proud of me. I know he loves me. I know we're solid. We have a great relationship.
Yeah. Pause for a second here on this, and not even pause. Like, we're pausing so we can kind of enlarge the frame and look a little more. There's something in here that's big. I wonder if I don't have that resolve with my mom. I don't allow in that she's proud of me. It doesn't mean anything right now because I don't respect her. And I need her to become somebody I respect first. So then when she says she's proud of me, then I'll get it. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm a very firm believer of not taking advice of people less successful than you. I've heard that since I was a kid, and it makes sense to me. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. You know, I'm best friends with the janitor as I am the CEO. That's not what I mean. I mean, on a financial business standpoint, I'm going to listen to my dad before I listen to my mom. And I say that to girlfriend. I'm like, my mom fucked up by not having a job. She didn't stay busy. She didn't keep going. She just kind of lost everything and unraveled. And so now I'm putting that on her of like, you can't just stay home. You need to do this. You need to do that. And I don't know if that's the right answer because it's just the opposite of what my mom did. And it's a lot easier for me to not judge my dad based on his accolades, whereas it's really easy to judge my mom because she doesn't have any.
Yeah. It's there. You either don't see it or you don't allow it in because you don't respect who your mom is or what she's done or how she's taking care of herself. So what can she possibly tell me?
Yeah.
I'm going to stretch for this one because I like tying things in a bow before we finish. How can anybody love me if I don't love myself? How can I love anybody else if I don't love myself? I got to do that first. So you sending her a text, hey, Ma, I love you, just thinking about you. How could she possibly say I love you too when she doesn't love herself? Where she's been and how she's been in her life, I don't know that she's going to. So we've got to find the way where we do hear it from her movie. And it's going to be in different forms.
Yeah.
Especially with baby coming, you might be like, well, you need to do this and make sure you do this. You're not going to take that advice from her. If we get past that part and go, wait. Oh, snap. That's my mom saying she loves me. It's just coming out that way.
Yeah.
So if we listen for it without that charge or without wanting her to be different, similar to you sending a text saying, hey, Mom, love you, thinking about you, just want you to know that. Who cares if she writes you back? You said it. You're being the son you want to be.
Yeah.
Right now, who cares? I do. Little Drew does. Hey, what about me? Okay. And that's the wound.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go all like, well, grow the fuck up, little Drew. No, that's still a part of us.
Right. No, and I'm glad you went this route with it because I thought we were going to end on that's your mom and that's how she is. That's her movie. It just is that way. Because I was like, that fucking sucks, dude. Like, that fucking sucks. But looking at it from the interpretation of reading her love language, I think is a lot cooler and gives me new territory to kind of explore with her as far as finding our common ground on how we communicate our love to each other versus just a text on a Sunday.
Yeah. Listen for that because it's there more than you think. And wanting her to be different than she is, we're constantly going to be disappointed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Okay, we're back. I've got thoughts about the ending of that session, but you know me, I like to start chronological, so I'm going to hold off. Okay, first one, out the gate. I have a question for Drew. I want to ask him like how he's feeling about the uncertainty, about his heart issue, not knowing what is wrong.
He's talked about that.
He has?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've actually gone there.
Yes.
Because I'm like, that's got to be contributing to some of his anxiety.
Sort of. He's talked about that in the past where he said part of him wants to not hear anything because what's he going to do?
That's true. I remember that. Yeah.
And then I pushed on that. There's nothing necessarily that he's heard or that I've heard him tell me medically that needs to be addressed that's not getting addressed.
I was just about to say that. Okay. So you're not addressing that because it's not something that is actually threatening to his life right now. It's just, okay, we don't really know. That's the update. It's not something worth pursuing in a therapy setting right now because it's not affecting him that much.
Correct. And for our armchair therapists out there, that as a therapist, when you hear things like this, we are obligated to think about a client's health and safety.
Of course.
And if they are not doing something that could be considered neglect or self-harm because they're not taking care of something, then we may need to do something about that. We have a mandate. But if it's not happening that way, if it's just, there's nothing that I hear that needs to be addressed in that way, I am going to ask some probing questions and see where we're at. Like,
okay.
That we can do.
Probe a little bit or poke at it a little bit, but it's actually not the biggest issue or something that we need to get into. But it's just that little fear in the back of my mind, my therapist's fear, that's just like, ooh, I feel like I need to talk about that. But really it's okay. It's okay.
It's giving the client space for them to talk about it if they need to, and pushing a little bit, just going, hey, well, I want to check in on this. How is this really? And this isn't a pressing health issue. He is still getting it checked out and he's doing what he needs to do.
Cool. Okay. I'm just checking you. The BBS called me and they wanted me to make sure you're doing your due diligence.
Well, you can't spell BBS without BS.
Oh.
By the way, for our armchair therapists out there, BBS is the Board of Behavioral Sciences. That is our governing body.
Yeah. They rule us.
They rule.
Kind of. Do they? I don't know. Speaking of progress, though, and speaking of metaphors, Doug, your wonderful analogies, the Yoda and Vader, what I love about this is that Yoda and Vader are still there. They're both there.
Yeah.
Like Drew says, I'm just noticing it and I'm choosing what to do. It's like you notice it. You notice the Darth Vader voice. You notice the Yoda. They're both there. Okay, I can listen to both. I can notice. What do I want to do next? Right. I can still make a choice.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I said to him early on. We're not going to get rid of Vader. Vader will always be there.
But that's a really hard thing, I think, for clients, right? Like that's really what we're talking about is acceptance and kind of opening up to our experience. And I really have been noticing lately that is the hardest part for clients to kind of actually do. I think in theory, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Anxiety is not going to go away, but actually living with that and knowing that truth that anxiety is kind of a given of life and we're not going to eradicate it through therapy is really hard to sit with.
It's also really liberating. If you think about what clients want sometimes is that eradication, right?
Yeah, reducing symptoms.
Right, reducing symptoms. Subtraction. Take this out.
Yeah.
How do I get rid of this?
Right.
And, well, we're not going to get rid of that. What we're going to do is add in this. It's subtraction by way of addition.
Yeah. You'd be so proud of me with a client the other day. I used a metaphor that was like, talking about diet, right? And like diet culture sucks, whatever. We're not actually going to put you on a diet, right?
Right.
And that's the kind of the point. Like we're actually going to add some healthy things into your life instead of subtracting the donuts. You know what I mean? Like let's add some acceptance and, emotional experiencing and not subtracting the intellectual and the logical side and like all that stuff.
Look at you smiling when you're telling me about that.
Look at me using a metaphor. I am proud of that because it didn't come naturally to me for a while. I'm a very literal person. So
then pause for a second, little meta here. You saying something very Sarah-like to me, which is, oh, you'd be proud of me. And then you told me the thing.
You're so right.
I hear that as
I'm
you're
proud of myself.
Right. And I asked you and you said you were, right?
You're right.
Which is awesome. See? Exactly what you're describing. This is sort of analogy, but not really. I had a client going through a very similar thing where he would do the Whole30, right? Like you spend a month eating a certain way, right? And he realized, oh, I went to the market and instead of thinking, I don't eat that, and I don't have my list of things telling me what to eat and what not to eat.
Yeah.
I just walked in there and was like, I know what I eat. And I just picked up the things that felt nourishing, that felt good, that were the things that I've been eating. And I didn't even think about the Whole30. I just thought about, this is what I eat.
Good. Yeah.
What feels good.
Yeah.
And it was great because in my mind, that was addition, not subtraction. He was adding, this is what nourishes me. This is what I want to put in my grocery cart and take home and cook.
That's the abundance versus the scarcity kind of mindset.
Totally.
Right?
The addition, not subtraction. The adding Yoda, not subtracting Vader. I love that Drew said this. He said, well, I listen to Yoda, but I still hear Vader.
Yeah.
Which is great.
There.
They're
You're
both
going to
they're both there. Both voices are there. It's which one are you listening to? Which one are you going to act upon?
Right. And in this case, it was something that would have activated his Vader hardcore in the past, which was mom not responding to an I love you, right? Like just really, I mean, it got me in the feels a little bit. That's really painful. I mean, I hear little Drew in that, right? Like you can see it. It's vibrant. It's woof. Ouch, mom just will not say, I love you.
Right.
Like, fuck. That's so frustrating and so disappointing. And it's so little Drew, just like, mommy, please, just tell me you love me.
Right.
Banging on the door. Like, I'm getting that image.
That's what I was hitting at the end.
Yes.
That sensation, like, mommy, why don't you tell me you love me?
Yeah.
That's a Drew issue. That's not a mom issue. He's trying to get mom to say, I love you. There's something in him going on.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about the other person.
That's the hard part with parents,
Well,
right?
Parents are literally the mother and father of all of this stuff, right? Because it starts with them. And that's our first relationships for almost all of us, right? Where we experience this. Years ago on the dating apps, this is very...
Dating apps. Ooh.
Very telling to me. Not a client. This was me on the dating apps.
Yes.
So she reached out to me and I wrote something right back when I saw it. And then I've never been on the apps that often. So I'm not like checking it incessantly.
Yeah.
I have no notifications for anything on my phone.
Ever.
Ever.
Could get you into trouble, but yeah.
Tell me how.
Well, like not responding to a message for days or something. Someone's going
How
to
does
be
that
like,
get me in trouble?
It doesn't get you in trouble, but someone, okay, you're right. It'll be their problem, right? Because they're freaking out that you're not responding.
That's
okay,
exactly
I got there.
right.
I got there.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened because when I finally went back on and I looked, I saw two things from this person. One was she had written me back and she said something like, oh, we started out so strong and now we're petering out. What's going on? It wasn't like a week had gone by. It was just a couple of days.
It's a long time nowadays, though.
And then I don't know the language. I was blocked or unmatched or deleted or something. And
probably one of those.
Right. And it just really clicked for me like, wow, what a great filtering process.
Oh my gosh. See, but there's another way to see that as like, ooh, I really dropped the ball on that one, or communication is really important. Consistency. If we're thinking in terms of like parenting, especially kind of just showing up and being there. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
yeah.
This wasn't a parent-child relationship. This is two people that have never communicated with each other except for a text through a dating app back and forth over the span of 2 or 3 days.
And one could say maybe her anxious attachment was showing itself very early on.
Look at that.
I know.
Right.
I don't want to be reductionist here, but it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. At first I was like, oh man. And I thought about all my clients that were dating and they were like, oh, this person ghosted me or this person this. And I'm like,
oh yeah.
Okay, but it's nothing you did. And they were like, man, I should have done this. I should have done that. I'm like,
yes.
We don't know. It's whatever was going on for them.
Yeah. You know the 4 agreements? Are you familiar with that book and that concept? One of them is to not take things personally. Basically, it's like 4 values or virtues or whatever for how to live a zenful life. The main one I always took from it was to not take things personally, whether it's positive or negative. It doesn't matter. Like they don't know you.
It's funny because I'm assuming that comes from the 4 agreements of Buddhism.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is don't take it personally, pretty much.
Yes, it's a non-attachment kind of thing. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's similar, I think, to our kind of Western therapy way of using acceptance.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so accept the ending. How did you like the rest of the session? Go through it.
No, well, speaking of being reductionist, I'm calling you out, Doug. The NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, or borderline, because the borderliney people, you said that. And I know we use that language sometimes as therapists to kind of summarize a trait or a group of traits that maybe some people display, including Drew's mother.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing that you always say are those 3 things to remember about that type of person. It's always about them. It's never going to be good enough. They're always the victim.
Yep.
In my heart of hearts, in my gut, I'm like, oh yeah, we all know people like that, right?
Sure.
And then in my little logical, intellectual brain, I'm like, oh, but surely that's too reductionist, right? And it kind of groups these people together and makes them look bad and like, oh, but it's really their wounds and their abandonment issues and their insecurities. And it's hard to hold both, I think. But this is when we're talking about parents, like it explains it. It doesn't excuse it kind of thing that I think you and Drew talk about a lot.
What I'm doing here by saying those 3 things is giving him a roadmap to boundaries in order to keep mom or people like this in his life. I'm not saying this as here's a rule. If you hear somebody acting with these 3 things in mind, then you need to get rid of them. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah. I was just about to, at some point, I don't even remember, I was going to talk about the difference between boundaries and rules.
Like,
because that's something clients will ask too. Like, well, what if we're all just setting boundaries all the time and then we end up just as disconnected as ever. You know what I mean? And we're just not talking to each other. And I'm like, whoa. There's a difference between rules versus boundaries. Boundaries are actually, I used your line, like to keep people in. It's like, hey, here's the gate and here's the door, how to get in.
Yeah.
And that resonated. I think it does make sense. And I think it resonates with people because I've even said something similar to that about, hey, like I'm not that person's therapist. I can't diagnose them, but it sounds like they have these traits and this is kind of what you can expect from somebody like that, right? And it does help to just put some perspective on it and also to not take it personally. Like this is what that person is capable of or not capable of.
Right.
But with parents specifically and with Drew here, it's so easy to regress when we are with family.
Oh, totally.
Right? I mean, you're the one who taught me that phrase, right? Of like, you can be the most enlightened person in the world, but then go on a trip with your family, right? Is that
it's not my line. I think it's Ram Dass who
brilliant.
says, if you think you're enlightened, go home for the holidays.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's perfect because every person I've ever said it to gets it. It's so easy to regress and go back to the young version of yourself when you are with your family. Okay, something happens maybe halfway through this session. He is venting a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
I know we see this with clients a lot. And we do this ourselves where we just have to spew, as Drew and you call it, where he just lets it all out.
Right.
And then you have him slow down, take a breath while you do some talking, right? I'm curious about that. Like, I struggle with sometimes the phrasing of telling my client to take a breath because I don't want it to be patronizing or teacher-student. You know what I mean? I sense it and I feel it like they need a deep breath after spewing or venting or whatever. But I don't know. How do you go about that language of like, hey, I feel like you need to just take a deep breath really quick, right? But it's not like, hey, I can't handle you right now.
Right as you just said that, hey, I need you to take a deep breath. That's patronizing.
No, of course. And I would not say it like that.
And if you think about it, I kind of do what you are careful not to do. Like you said, I don't want to be the teacher-student dynamic, and I don't want to do that.
I know what's best for you.
Right.
That kind of thing.
As the mirror for the client, I do know what's best for them in the moment is to slow down and take a breath.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that as the teacher. I'm saying that as them. I can see a client, in this case it was Drew, overwhelmed and this, that, and that. Like, okay, can we slow Drew down?
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Can we think about this a little bit and what happens when we do this? And part of it is emotional regulation. If we're feeling this and getting all cortisol shot up and feeling adrenalized and then we're going to act a certain way. What happens if we take a breath, bring that down just a little bit?
Yeah.
It's like what you were asking earlier of if you don't have access to your regular coping mechanisms. And I said 75% of that at least is anxiety and panic.
Yeah.
Can we bring that down?
Right.
And then what do we do when we're there? So it's not patronizing, at least the way that I do it with the clients.
No,
I don't say, take a breath. I say, I'm going to ask you to take a breath while I talk for a minute.
Yeah. And do you always talk while they're taking a breath? Or are there times when you've actually just had a grounding exercise or a grounding moment where you're both just silent and taking a breath?
For sure.
Okay.
With Drew, sometimes he'll do that when he's getting emotional. We'll pause. And you don't hear it necessarily on the podcast because when there's a big pause or a space, we kind of cut that. You don't want to hear too much of that.
Boring.
Right. Yeah. But that is something that also I want a client to register when the weight of something is on them. Like if they're just spewing in terms of Drew, he knows feathers and bricks. I don't think we used it here, but when you're carrying a lot of weight on you, whoa, hang on. Let's slow down and recognize how much weight you're really carrying. What you just told me, me this, and this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa, that's a lot.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So we take stock of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's emotional regulation. It's recognizing what's actually going on physically with your body, emotionally and mentally inside of you.
Yeah. I think that's the experiential learning of therapy where you don't just say, you do together.
Right.
Like you don't just say, go home and try this. It's let's practice this together.
And if you noticed in that moment, when I finish talking, I say to him, how does that hit you? And the first thing out of his mouth, it doesn't hold as much weight as it used to.
Ooh, it's so very connected to probably how his body was feeling in that moment.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And his usual coping mechanism is I'll smoke weed. Right? So we're doing it without that.
Right. We're taking a big rip of oxygen.
Right. Right.
My note here says freaks him out and relieves him. Oh, okay. To think about not talking to his parents. It simultaneously freaks him out and relieves him.
Right.
I was like, snap, snap, snap. Yes, yes, yes.
Right.
Don't we all feel that way?
Right. Right.
I mean, no, Mom, I love you if you're listening. I would never say that about you. But I think a lot of us can relate to the pressure and the pressure that he's under specifically. You know, he has his own family that he's worried about. And when he's with his parents, he is also little Drew. So he's little Drew, he's big Drew simultaneously.
Yeah.
It freaks him out. It relieves him. It's like all these dialectics.
Right. And he's walking through it so beautifully in this session, which is great. And I love that I love a couple of things about this. One, that he went to his girlfriend and she had a line that really hit him. It was something like, well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Like, I love you unconditionally.
Right. I love you for who you are.
Right. That's true.
Not about what you're doing or this or that. And I thought it was really cool that he's hearing Dad's perspective on Mom. Oh, okay. And then recognizing like, all right, I love my mom, but I don't like her very much.
Yeah.
That was huge.
And he realized he didn't respect her either,
right.
which we'll get to too at the end of the session. But that's really the bittersweet, the hardest thing of growing up is realizing how similar and different you are from your parents.
Totally.
And you outgrow them. And it doesn't mean that you don't need them anymore. It's just that things are different.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what we said in the session. And I love that he remembered it and kind of took those, we're calling them the narcissistic borderline three things that I
traits,
say. Sure. Right. And he throws that back like it sinks in and just went, right. And having boundaries sometimes hurts because, as he said,
it does.
He was outgrowing them, but outgrowing, like you said, doesn't mean I don't want them. Doesn't mean I just want them differently now.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean it's easy. Identifying and creating your boundaries is one thing. Asserting them and reinforcing them is another thing, right?
Totally.
Like to continuously remind people or remind yourself that you have these boundaries in place is hard.
Right. And boundaries, as I said, are a way to keep people in your life. It doesn't mean that they're going to choose to stay in it. They might choose not to.
Right.
And that's really tough. And that will feel like abandonment. And we have to work on that piece too. But he's not feeling that. He's just kind of going, yeah, all right. You know, that's different. And he did go to the emotional place, which was cool.
He did. And what helped him, I think, was your self-disclosure of your dad. And I think it's really beautiful. You know, I think a lot of therapists would probably be like, whoa, Doug. Like, that's a lot of self-disclosure on the therapist part, right? Like to talk about your own father and your relationship. But I've seen it time and time again, especially with the two clients who are on the podcast, but I'm sure it's with all your clients. Like when it's appropriate and when it's done well, it has clearly changed these people's lives. I mean, they really, really resonate with it. And I think Drew, I'm sure there's some transference of like daddy stuff with you, right?
Sure.
But he sees you as a mentor figure, a dad figure in a way, and hearing that you had a kind of bumpy relationship with your dad. But the best thing really, I think, is this concept of like, I can still love the memory of the person who raised me and our childhood together and not really like who they are now or who they became.
Yeah, I think that resonated with him a lot.
Yeah.
And the self-disclosure is because it's real.
Like, it is. Yeah, it's honest.
And I did it for a reason. I was going to a place where I was going to tell him, here are the emotions that I felt when that was happening.
Right. And so it's okay to feel that.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just say, yeah, so this is what happened. It happened to me too. Yep,
same.
It happens. High five. Yep, we're getting through it. Cool.
No,
that's what we do.
Purposeful and intentional.
Because I ended with telling him like how I was feeling. I mean, it really did hit a place where I said, you know, I even began pitying my dad, you know, the guy that I looked up to for so long and wanted his approval. And then I said, well, that's my version. What's your version? That's when he was able to go to the emotional place.
Right. It's vulnerable. I will stand by this for the rest of my life. Vulnerability begets vulnerability. That's, I think, when self-disclosure can be purposeful and beneficial.
And that's he's seeing me vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we're going to that emotional place. And day one, he talked about vulnerability. So I knew he wanted to.
That's a value of his.
So when I open it up and I show him the feelings, the part where I knew that this really hit him in the feels, like in his feels. Was that the feelings he described were not the ones that I described for me.
No, he can relate it to him now. And what's my version of that?
Yes. He didn't go, I pity her too. And I got sad and frustrated and mad too. No, he was like, I feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
I'm scared. Like,
I know. And you were
wow.
like, ooh, embarrassed. That's such a good word because people, I think, struggle with identifying embarrassment because it's embarrassing to be embarrassed. And so I think you were excited by that word. And so was I when I heard that. Because,
that was great.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff in this episode. This one's going to be way too long. This session is juicy. He has anxiety about his mom dying. Like, there's just so much there, so much existential stuff.
Right.
And really, the summary of that is like, well, I was the son I wanted to be, right?
Yeah.
That's a really nice
Yeah, we've talked
reframe
about that. We've
sometimes.
talked about that over time. That's not a brand new concept for
right.
him.
I know. I know I've heard you say that before, but I think you've gotten to a point with him where sometimes that's the best we can do is just what's in my control and how can I just feel okay being the person I am when they do die, because they will die.
Yeah. Well, and not just die, but when I separate. Right. And when I individuate. And we've done so much work and laid so much groundwork. Like people think, oh, God, you've been doing the Drew podcast for like a couple years now. Really? What's that about? Like, well, if you listen over time, which if you guys have.
Just freaking listen to it.
Right. You'll know that we laid a lot of groundwork for individuation and becoming your own person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we talked about how to still have a relationship with your parents by being the son that you want to be, that you're okay with at the end of the day.
Right. Right.
And this is almost, I wouldn't say it's the culmination, but it's the application of this stuff when his mom comes to his work and he's like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we go, right, that's mom.
Yeah.
That's not you.
We're associated with them, but we don't have to over-identify with them or think that they're a part of us anymore.
Or be defined by them the way that we were as kids.
Yeah. I think I would have asked him, but maybe this is not the right time or place to ask. But the existentialist in me is really just like, ooh, what scares you the most about your mom dying, right? But I think you already maybe knew that because of the foundation that you have with him. And so being the son he wants to be is kind of answering that question already. Like maybe his worst fear is not living up to his standards of how he wanted to be with her. Yes.
And that's something that will go from being the son you want to be to being the man that you want to be, the person that you want to be. Because one of his biggest fears of his dad and mom, if they split, is, then I'll be the only one taking care of my mom.
Yes. Oh my God, the pressure and the weight of that.
Right.
Oof.
And I even brought it back to, that reminds me of when he described being kids with his brother and his mom was going to go out in Canada, like in the snow, and it was below zero.
Oh.
And she was drunk and messed up, and
of course,
she and dad got in a fight or something, and she was going to go outside.
Yeah.
And Drew was about to, at like 14 years old, go out there and stop mom. And his brother said, if you go out there, I'll never talk to you again.
Oh my God, I don't remember this.
This was one of the very first episodes where we were talking about brother was looking at getting married and having a bachelor party. And he was like, yeah, we're estranged. I don't really talk to him.
Yeah, I do know that.
What we worked on was that might be brother's way of trying to protect Drew and show him a boundary. But Drew took that on, and that was the codependence with mom and the enmeshment. And no, I need to go out there and I need to put on the cape and save her and do this. And what we're coming to now, again, the culmination of a lot of this work is, your mom can be there, embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my mom. That's not me.
Yeah.
Right?
And ouch. Like, it is embarrassing. It hurts. We see this a lot. I think clients will judge the people that they are hurt by, because it's easier to kind of attack instead of just feel the pain of it. But I guess I just wonder, like, what if we, I'll just read my question that I wrote down. What if we just never feel love from our parents? Like their version of love, in quotes, is actually painful or hurtful, and there's just no resolve. There's just no hope besides like accepting it. It just is what it is, but it's so painful that there's no way of even interpreting it as love. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense that that's a thought. And I think you like, as a question, you started it with what if, right? And we're all out of time for today. So if you guys come back. Okay. I think what you're getting at is we do and need to process grief.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a loss.
I have to.
And we need to process that loss.
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge that really hurts.
And it feels so painful.
And what I often, not always, will try to highlight with the client is that going back to the 4 agreements, that's not about you.
Right.
That's about them.
Yeah.
Not always. Sometimes it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we go with that's about the parent, and the parent is as flawed a human being as the next person.
Yep.
And maybe we can have compassion for them. We don't have to.
Right.
Right?
God, Doug, but it's so painful. It's so painful.
We think of our clients with this. We think of our friends, ourselves, our family.
Yeah.
And this is why we have job security.
Of course.
Right?
I literally just made that joke to my client the other day because we have that kind of rapport built. But yeah, it was like, if parent-child relationships were always perfect, like I would not have a job.
Right.
It's truly the number one reason people are in therapy.
Yeah.
It's crushing. People realizing your caregiver, the person who knows you arguably the best or has seen you in every stage of your life, like doesn't like you, does not respect you, or doesn't treat you well.
Yeah.
That is horrible. It's so painful.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I've got for today.
On that note, Kenzie,
yeah,
I am proud of you. You did great today.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, more external validation.
And if you do want some more external validation, then maybe our listeners
Get a
can
therapist.
rate
Just
us and review us and talk about how they like you.
Oh, me. You're talking to me now. I thought you were talking to the listeners.
Sure.
Okay.
Both of them. I mean, you also, Kenzie, can
leave
rate
a
and review the
for
podcast.
myself. I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to recruit people to leave reviews. No, I'm not.
And we will be back with you next week
Sounds good.
with some Sarah action.
Woo woo.
Bye.
Bye-bye.